Go for it.
Okay. Tonight's presentation is called Fathers of Children with Hearing Loss, Fostering Greater Inclusion in Service Provision. This was originally presented by Todd Houston when we were at Partnering for Progress in North Carolina. And tonight's brought to you by me, Carrie Piper, with Illinois Guide by your side. We'll go ahead and get started. And just a little bit about the background and purpose of this presentation. Mothers have traditionally been the primary contact for professionals who work with children with disabilities. Research concerning families of children with disabilities has also shown a bias towards mothers, with little interest shown in fathers. Mothers' views, feelings, educational backgrounds, and social supports have been studied at length. The purpose of the presentation held in North Carolina was to explain a current research model that surveyed fathers of children with disabilities to determine if they feel involved in the services that their children receive. The purpose of this presentation is to bring you the information gathered in that research, the validity of the results, as well as what more we can do as parent guides to help bring attention to professionals to the fact that fathers do have a role just as important as the mother's role. It's also to kind of give us some ideas and suggestions on how we can better provide services to fathers as well as the role of the professional. Just a quote from Bob Dale: fathers have been described as the secondary, peripheral, and even the imaginary parent. And this is a quote from his book, Uncommon Fathers. And out of the mouths of fathers. I found a couple other quotes by dads who have children with disabilities that I thought were pretty interesting to read. One father said, "Sometimes I think my frustration and anger will overpower my love for Katie." Another father said, "Being a father usually assigns one to a second-class status in the family. Mothers are thought of as the norm when it comes to dealing with children with special needs." And last, the father said, "Words are inadequate to describe this emotional cross-current. The peak of joy at the birth of my fine son and the devastation at the death of my expectations. From that point on, my greatest challenge has been to control my fear of the unknown." So these are all quotes by dads, but definitely they share similar feelings to how moms feel. Whereas research on mothers has traditionally focused on issues of parenting and nurturing, emotional bonding, language and communication stimulation, reactions to diagnosis, etc. Most research on fathers has focused on paternal pathology, such as abusive fathers, fatherlessness, absent fathers or single parenting, or deadbeat dads. The focus seems to always be on the negative side of dad's role, or the lack thereof. We need to explore responsible and involved fathering as well as continue to understand parental problems. Fathers tend to respond to the diagnosis of their child with heightened emotions, like the mother. While mothers typically will follow the emotions with practical thinking and are task-oriented, fathers tend to have more creative thinking and have a significant impact on their children with special needs. We don't see this in every aspect of parenting typically, but definitely when it's in this type of role. So there's a study in the United Kingdom. A total of 33 fathers were interviewed in a face-to-face focus group. The purpose was to examine their feelings about having a child with a hearing loss and the services that support them. What did the fathers want? They wanted more involvement with their child, family, and support services. They wanted to receive information firsthand. They wanted their unique roles to be recognized and supported through networks. The flexibility of employers to be able to attend appointments, and the flexibility of service providers if their employers were not flexible. A study in the United States was a 47-question survey, and initially it was mailed out to 152 fathers across the country, only 3 in Illinois. Out of that 152, there were 51 that were returned. The research questions were: do fathers feel adequately included in support services and the intervention process? How can professionals include and involve fathers in their child's services? Do fathers feel their child's hearing loss has a negative effect on their relationship with their child? In addition, various agencies posted a link to this survey on their website, which then resulted in a total of 262 completed surveys. The majority of the fathers who responded are, and these are just some demographics, the majority were from California, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, Florida, and Oklahoma. Ages 31 to 40, mostly Caucasian. Primary language is English. Highest level of education was a 4-year college degree. And then it lists the household income. The demographics of their children, the age of childhood diagnosis was 0 to 3 months. The current age of the child at the time of the survey was 3 to 5 years. 97% of those children have a bilateral hearing loss, more than half at the profound level. And 82% of those children communicate with spoken language. So the results of the questions that were asked, 48% felt included at the initial audiologic evaluation. 64% felt that the professionals were sensitive to their feelings when explaining the diagnosis. 67% felt they were given adequate information about technological options. 66% strongly agree that they have an active role in decision-making. 67% stated they've been specifically invited to an appointment. Fathers were asked what professionals could do to include them and how they would like to be included. They said they would like to schedule meetings at the start or end of the day so that they're easier for them or for the working parent to attend. They said a guide showing important meetings so they can prioritize the ones they attend if they can't attend them all. Video recordings or write-ups of the meetings that they miss. I think a lot of that was talked about in regards to maybe parents that are no longer together or living in the same home and just a real lack of communication. Maybe the one parent who's attending the meeting isn't communicating with the other parent on what the appointment was about. So just requesting maybe a write-up from the professional. And then support groups specifically for fathers of children with hearing loss. Overall, the majority of the fathers feel satisfied with their level of inclusion, which surprised me. These are some things that fathers suggested. I'll just read through them quickly. Phone consultations, email or blogs, father-only appointments, looking at the father when talking at appointments. Seems pretty simple, but we know it's not always done. The summaries of appointments, teaching fathers what is to be expected, giving them permission to ask questions, the flexibility of appointments, meetings on weekends or extended hours, separate notification of appointments. And again, that would be for parents who don't live in the same household. So here's what professionals need to remember. This is based on this study. Don't make assumptions about the father's role or level of interest. He doesn't come to the first appointment. It doesn't mean he doesn't want to be at any others. Understand that fathers may respond creatively, be sensitive to cultural and religious differences and corresponding role of the father, be sensitive and empathetic to their situation, treat the father as an equal partner, and make eye contact. This is a big one in my family initially. And once the professional was made aware that that needed to be done, it's happened every time since. So all we need to do is just kind of share that with them. So what can Guide by Your Side do? We have Mom's Night In. North's been a great success. Now it's been brought in to include a central event with the hopes of there being a southern event in the future. So moms get a chance to unwind and share and bond and have a break. But what about dads? As parent guides, we could all encourage the fathers in our families that we see to start a dad's-only parent support group. It doesn't have to be one that we run necessarily, but encouraging a father that seems to be more outgoing to be the one to initiate that and to start that in his area. Or a dad and child event, instead of events that cater just to mom and the child, or ones that can only get the mom to come. Something that's geared towards the dad and the child. Encouraging dads to call in to the Calls for All, to attend conferences, etc., making sure we're not only giving the information to the mom. So there were some limitations of this study. Were the fathers who participated in the study already more involved in some? You saw how many return surveys there were when they opened it up to agencies putting it on their websites. Well, in order for that to happen, that means dads were already on the websites or they were already linked up with these agencies. So they are already involved a little bit more than some fathers may be. Does choosing to be involved in the study mean that they're more involved and more likely to feel included? And lack of representation of more diverse ethnic groups and socioeconomic status. So some suggestions for future research. Would spouses agree on the extent of the father's involvement? And would spouses rate them as highly? This is something that really opened up some discussion in North Carolina, typically, and a lot of it has to do with maybe lack of communication or poor communication between two parents. If both parents are involved with the child, whether they are still together in a relationship or not, dad thinks he's really involved, as the surveys show, but does mom feel the same way? Does mom think that he's involved enough? Dad may feel it's enough, but does mom? And that's just lack of communication between the two of them. And same thing, would professionals rate the fathers as highly as they rated themselves? The dads may feel going to that first appointment was enough. Yes, I'm involved. I was there. I know the diagnosis. I do my research on my own, where the professional may not see that as enough, really wanting the father to be included on all the appointments, and even be sure that they're invited to them. So that is it. This information was adapted from Todd Houston. Again, he is from the School of Speech and Language Pathology and Audiology at the University of Akron. And there is his contact information. He was really, really helpful. I talked with him after the presentation. He showed a really interesting video clip that if you want to go to the conference website and pull up his PowerPoint presentation, it's at the very end. It was a really interesting video of a father that he interviewed, and he's going to be looking at more fathers to interview. One of those may actually be my son's father. So they are in talks of making that happen, and he's looking to speak with other fathers to get their opinions about involvement. And that's my information, so now you all know how to contact me. And that is it. Anybody have any questions? Thank you, everybody.
All right, Carrie, if you want to go on to the post questions.
All righty. Number 1. There is significant research available regarding both parents' involvement in raising a child with a disability. Is that true or false?
Okay, question 2.
Number 2. Most research on fathers is focused on these pathologies. Sharing emotions. A, sharing emotions. B, absent fathers or single parenting. Or C, available support.
Question 3.
Number 3, during a current study in the United States, 262 fathers responded to a survey, with the majority saying they did not feel satisfied with their level of inclusion or involvement. True or false?
Okay, question 4.
Number 4, during this same study, the fathers replied that they would like the following from providers. A, phone consultations. B, father-only appointments. C, summaries of appointments. D, teaching patterns, what is to be expected. Or E, all of the above.
I'm going to pause. All right, you're all set.
It's not recording. Oh, it is. Okay. Unilateral hearing loss. This is from the North Carolina conference, and I am presenting with Allison Rollins, a parent guide with the Illinois guide by her side. So, just really quick, I know you guys know me, everybody knows me here, but I've been married for almost 14 years, and my two boys are Max, who's 9.5 years old, and he has a profound sensory unilateral hearing loss. And he's the reason I went to that workshop. And Eli is 6, and he has a profound bilateral sensory hearing loss. And I'm a teacher of the deaf. So some of the statistics that I walked away from the conference are that 1 in 1,000 of newborns in the newborn period, or 1 to 5% in the school age period, are having unilateral hearing loss. And that the most common cause of prelinguistic unilateral hearing loss is from CMV, which is cytomegalovirus. Studies in Tennessee and Arizona show that 25 to 35% of children with unilateral hearing loss failed 1 grade. 62% of the children researched had hearing loss in their right ear, and most also had severe to profound impairment. But even though 25 to 35% of children failed 1 grade, it's important to remember that that's about 60% of children with unilateral hearing loss are doing fine in school. To talk a little bit about research, and actually I pulled this up, in a school district with 54,000 students, 106 students were identified as having unilateral hearing loss. A review of their academic performance provided evidence that a unilateral hearing loss can place a child at risk for academic failure, especially when in the severe to profound range and or involving the right ear, which I find very interesting. I've heard that a lot, actually. And when Max was born and he was diagnosed with a hearing loss, he did not qualify for early intervention, which now has changed, thankfully. But I think, that's because of all the research that's showing that it seems like it's not important and, they can hear in 1 ear and so they're fine. But really, I'm learning through my experience and also through these workshops that I attend that they are not always fine. This looks like a lot, but this is talking about left ear versus right ear because of some of that research that I've seen. I was curious why. They say it's sometimes better to have a hearing loss in your left ear and be able to hear in your right ear. And that has to do with being the left side of the brain is important for language. So when you can hear in your right ear, and when somebody speaks in the right ear, then it goes to the left side of your brain, and you understand the language better. So that's just a synopsis of this whole slide, because it's kind of a lot, neuroscience and stuff. But that did totally make sense. That last bullet point says we can also see this tendency when people use the phone. Most will naturally hold it to their right ear. I don't know how many of you guys do that, but I do that all the time. I can't hear in my left ear, it feels like, even though I can. I always have to hold the phone on my right side. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. Some information about fitting a child with a hearing aid. Unilateral hearing loss is complicated. It complicates what to do for fitting a hearing aid more than a bilateral profound hearing loss. And usually babies are not fitted with a hearing aid until they're about 12 months, because when they're 12 months old, they start to walk, and they're further away from their parents who are talking. So it's a better time to fit them with hearing aids. Another option is using a cross, which is what we've tried with Max. And it's a cross aid where there's a microphone on the deaf side, and then it now is wireless, and it transmits the sound to the hearing side, and then they can hear what the person is saying on the deaf side. So my son, Max, really does like that, but the problem is when it's too loud, he cannot hear much at all. So he's still adjusting to that, and that's why they don't usually fit kids with a cross aid until they're old enough to really tell you when it's working and when it's not. Another thing that they talked about was an FM or hearing aid. Which one would be best with kids with unilateral hearing loss in school. And an FM provides the best results for speech perception, which is also what we found personally in our situation. The hearing aid when he uses that, the cross aid, just causes too much noise. When it's too noisy, he can't hear much of anything. And the FM helps him when it is very noisy in the room to at least hear the teacher. And then wearing it at ear level or on the desktop, which has a speaker, is usually better than when there's just a sound field speaker. Using the sound field speaker, you need to be careful about where you position the child in the equipment. Parents often don't follow through with hearing. Oh, what was that? I heard a buzzing. Parents often don't follow through with hearing aid wearing because they don't see a communication problem. I've got to say, sometimes I fall into that category where we just don't require it as much as we do with our other son. Kids can hear many sounds, so parents aren't just concerned as when they have a profound bilateral loss. Some common similarities among people with unilateral hearing loss are to get headaches. And this one I didn't know about, but tinnitus. I don't know how you pronounce it. If I'm pronouncing it right. People pronounce it differently. Dizziness and imbalance. And those three we don't really have as far as I know. Is everything okay? You guys hear that buzzing? Sorry.
Yeah, I think you're okay, though. I'm not sure if it's feedback from somebody else.
Okay.
I think you're good.
Sorry. Tell me if it's... Okay. Some other common similarities are that it's difficult to locate sound. So if something drops, they might hear that it's something dropped, but they don't know what it was and where it came from. And also when they're in an audience and people are asking questions, it's good for the person who's asking the question to yell, "I'm over here," and to give the person who has a unilateral loss, if of course the people in the audience know, like in the classroom, give the child with a unilateral loss time to look at the person asking the question or making a comment. And also when people call your name or the child's name, it's difficult for them to know who it is or where they're calling from. Hide and seek is not a fun activity in our house. Max can't find anybody as we try to give hints. Pretty sad. Anyway, more effects of unilateral hearing loss is an inability to hear in noisy situations and great discomfort in noisy situations. The brain is in overdrive to process for information. Fatigue, which gets worse as the day goes on. Evasiveness. Missed information or opportunities, and the turning head phenomena, which is, you're calling their name and they have no idea if they just keep turning their head and not sure where it's coming from. And definitely we experience this on a daily basis. And I know for a fact, I truly believe that when Max comes home from school and he's exhausted, that's a big reason is the unilateral hearing loss. And sometimes we've talked about is it a hearing loss or not, but I think for him, in this case, with the fatigue, definitely. Some interesting information and, again, personal experience is that children with a unilateral hearing loss may seem more distracted and that they have a limited attention span. So often they're misdiagnosed with having ADHD. So, the teacher's talking and maybe even calls on them, but they didn't hear it completely, so the teacher thinks they're not paying attention. And also I've noticed that when we take him for his hearing test and they make the task more difficult with noise in his good ear, he definitely becomes restless and moves around in his chair a lot and definitely looks like an ADHD kid, which he also has been diagnosed with, but a lot of times kids are misdiagnosed from what the research has shown. Just some suggestions if you guys are talking to any other families that have a child with unilateral hearing loss. In the classroom, the child's normal hearing ear should be closest to the teacher or the main sound source. And it might mean changing seats for different classroom activities, which we've had to do. And limiting background noise will make it easier for the child to hear and understand speech. So to remind the teacher that there are lots of different noises that teachers don't even realize, the air conditioners and fans and doors opening and keeping the doors open if there's a lot of activity in the hall. And of course, hard floors, a lot of stuff we all know with all our kids. Questions? I don't know if you guys have any questions. Hello. Okay, ready.
All right, move on to the post-test.
Okay. True or false? A child with a profound unilateral hearing loss does not benefit from a hearing aid.
And I think I'm just missing, there we go, Jacqueline. All right, question 2.
It is not important to inform the child's teacher of the child's unilateral loss.
Sorry, just give me a minute here. Okay, question 3, but before you guys go to question 3 and put in your answers, if you guys can put your number before your answer, that would be great because it helps me follow in the chat where question before ended and the new one starts. Thanks. So question 3?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sometimes children with a profound unilateral hearing loss are misdiagnosed with having ADHD.
Question 4.
Which is or are common effects of unilateral hearing loss? A, poor localization of sound. B, difficult hearing and noise. Difficulty hearing and noise. C, fatigue. Or D, all of the above.
And question 5.
Research has demonstrated that people with a profound unilateral loss in their right ear and the ability to hear in their left ear have higher language abilities.
Just waiting for Krista. Okay. We're good. I'm going to stop the recording or pause it.
My presentation.
Eliza? Can anyone else hear Eliza, or is it just me?
I can't hear her.
Nope.
Okay. Eliza, if you can hear us, Eliza, we can't hear you anymore.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. So I'm going to hopefully do this presentation on when it's more than hearing. And this was presented and written by Dr. Susan Wiley. And she gave me the permission to represent it or represent it to you all, hopefully tonight. And I'm Eliza Ellis, Parent Guide. So let me hopefully get through this. Here we go. Why it matters. Additional disabilities in children who are deaf or hard of hearing are more common than you may realize. We want children to achieve to their maximal potential, but often the complication of hearing and an additional disability makes it hard to know how to approach intervention. Seeing a child meet a goal is very rewarding, even if the child is not keeping up with peers. And this is a word that I always have a problem with. So let's hope. Etiology may or may not be related to other disabilities and is not protective. Some reports of children with GJB2 or connection mutations as cause of hearing loss have improved post-cochlear implant outcomes. But other data suggest that there's no differences. However, children with connection mutations are not protected from other developmental problems. So how are we doing regarding the 136 EDI goals for complex children? This is a really long list. So one of the biggest things is the median age of months is identification. For non-complex children is 3.4 months, and medically complex children is 5.5 months when they realize that there is a hearing loss. And then if you go down to the median age of early intervention enrollment is 8.6 months for medically complex and 6.5 months for non-complex. The percentage enrolled by 6 months is 36% for medically complex, 49% for non-complex. One thing that's very similar is the amplification. So 77% for medically complex, 76% for non-complex. So you do see a little bit of a difference there, actually. The median age of amplification months, though, looking at 9.5 months for medically complex and 7 months for non-complex. But this is one of the most interesting parts, is the percentage of children with severe to profound sensorineural hearing loss receiving a cochlear implant. Only 28% for medically complex. For non-complex, you're looking at 52%.
almost half as many as getting at that does not have a complex situation. There's some different quotes put through here that Dr. Wiley put in that I really thought you would enjoy. So special needs children go through so much that people see the cochlear implant as one more thing. I feel that they need to have every opportunity available to them. I want my child to be treated like he is not special needs. 1 through 6 is still important. Medically complex children who entered early intervention less than 6 months of age had a significantly higher baseline language than children who entered greater than 6 months of age. So age of at early intervention enrollment seems to be the most important factor for language in this population of children. So the importance of family in early intervention is even more critical in this population of children. Actually, to help prioritize the multitude of potential goals in different areas, the family is the one who's going to help with that the most. And they're the best people to understand the child or children's views. And a couple of different quotes. There's so much that's out of control. If we can make one thing within our control, we needed to do it. And then families need to do what is best for them. There is a right for each person. This is therapy versus parent training. Diagnostic therapy. It is important to try things differently from time to time and observe what is therapy versus parent training. So diagnostic therapy. It is important to try different things from time to time and observe what is happening to identify the most effective therapeutic strategies. The parent as a teacher-therapist. Families have many more potential hours for therapy within their natural environment as compared to 1 hour of therapy per week. It is not instant gratification, but it takes work from everybody to make sure they can do their best. You can't constantly drill them. They have to be kids. The gap. Children who are deaf and hard of hearing and have a coexisting developmental disability often are underachieving as compared to their cognitive potential. Because nonverbal cognitive abilities is the biggest predictor of language skills progress. Language skills are significantly lower, though, than age cognitively matched peers. But what's a little different is language levels do not match up with nonverbal cognitive abilities. Even though it is a predictor of language skills progress, it doesn't always match up with their cognitive abilities, nonverbal ones. And then there's labels. Labels, good or bad. Sometimes labels do open doors, especially with funding streams. If there's certain areas you're trying to get your child into, but also sometimes labels close doors, and a label can keep your child out of the same appropriate program. But the label itself says very little about that child. IDEA and labels when it takes a village. But what about IDEA and picking a primary category for Part B services when you really need more than the primary label? And this is Dr. Wiley's personal verbiage. This child has a specific learning disability in the area of XYZ. This is above and beyond that anticipated by the hearing loss alone. With the complexity of these needs, accommodation should reflect all of the child's needs. And a parent said, I would have liked to have some information to give the school about the adjustments to be made in the classroom. I wish I had more concrete things to tell the school. In the end, Dr. Wiley says the labels probably do matter, but how you advocate for appropriate goals and implementation of services is the most important. Most importantly, together we are more effective than individually, and success is the result of small efforts repeated day in and day out. And questions? No? That's it. I'm done here. Okay. Post-test questions. So, number 1. children that are deaf or hard of hearing rarely have additional disabilities. True or false?
Okay, question 2.
I thought I hung up again. Okay. Number 2, genetic mutations in children protect them from other developmental problems. True or false?
Okay, question 3.
How you link for appropriate goals and implementation of services is most important. A, flatter. B, irritate. C, advocate. D, bribe.
Question 4.
The percentage of medically complex children with severe to profound sensorineural hearing loss receive a cochlear implant nearly blank less than non-medically complex children. A, 5%, B, 15%, C, 48%, D, 75%. That's a little different than the first one, I think, or is it the same on the pre-test?
Give me a second. Okay, question 5.
Medically complex children who entered early intervention less than 6 months of age had significantly linked baseline language than children who entered older than 6 months of age. A, equal. B, higher. C, lower. D, none of the above.
All right, great. I'm going to stop recording.